Good evening. Take a slow breath. Let your chest rise and let it fall. You are somewhere warm and safe right now. The day is behind you. Whatever it asked of you, you gave what you could. That is already enough. Tonight, we are going to think slowly about money, but not the way you might think about it during the day. No decisions to make, no numbers to chase. We are simply going to sit with the quiet psychology of it. The way money lives not in spreadsheets, but in the mind. There is nothing you need to do with any of this tonight. Just listen. Let the words drift over you. If you fall asleep before the end, that is not a failure. That is the whole point. So let your shoulders drop just a little. Let the weight of the day settle down into the surface beneath you. We begin. Here is something worth sitting with for a moment. Most people believe that money is a math problem. That if you just knew the right formula, the right percentage to save, the right way to invest, everything would fall into place. But mathematicians are not necessarily wealthy. And many very thoughtful, financially stable people never took a formal money class in their lives. This is because money is not primarily a math problem. It is a psychology problem. The decisions you make with money are not made in the cool, calculating part of your mind. They are made in the feeling part, the part that remembers the time there was not enough, the part that watches what other people have and quietly compares, the part that panics when markets fall, the part that daydreams when everything seems to be rising. You have had this experience, perhaps. You know that spending less than you earn is the right thing to do. You understand this clearly, and yet somehow, on certain days, the knowing does not quite reach the doing. That gap between knowing and doing is where psychology lives. And understanding that gap is one of the most valuable things you can do for your financial life. More valuable in many ways than any formula or percentage. So tonight, we are going to rest inside that gap. We are going to look at it softly, without judgment, not to fix it, simply to understand it. Because understanding, in its quiet way, is where most lasting change tends to begin. The mind that knows why it does something is already a little freer than the mind that does not. Let us think about fear first. Fear is one of the oldest emotions in the human body. Long before money existed, fear kept our ancestors alive. A rustle in the grass, a shape in the shadows. Fear said, "Pay attention." Fear said, "Move." That ancient machinery is still running. Even now, when you are lying in a warm bed, far from any immediate danger, even when you are simply thinking about a number on a screen, the same old alarm bells can ring just as loudly. And here is the gentle problem. Fear was designed for immediate threats, for things happening right now in front of you that required a fast response. It was not designed for long-term financial decisions that unfold quietly over decades. When markets drop sharply, something deep in the body says, "Escape, sell, stop the bleeding, get out before it gets worse." This is the fear response. It is fast, it is powerful, and in financial terms, it is very often exactly the wrong move. The person who sells everything when prices are falling locks in their losses. They are no longer in the game when the recovery begins. And recovery, across the long arc of financial history, has tended to come. Not always quickly, not always comfortably, but it has come. This is not a judgment. Fear is not a weakness. It is one of the most human things there is. Even the most experienced investors feel it. The question is not whether you will feel fear. You will. The question is whether you can notice it, name it, and let a little time pass before you act. That pause, that small moment between feeling and action, is one of the most valuable things you can cultivate in your financial life. You might practice it now in a very small way. Even here in the quiet dark, notice where your body is carrying any tension. Name it and let it go just for tonight. This is, in its own quiet way, the practice of financial patience. On the other side of fear sits its counterpart. Greed is a harsher word than it needs to be. Let us call it something softer. Let us call it the pull toward more, the lean forward when things are going well. It is not a character flaw. It is ancient, like fear. The desire for abundance, for security, for enough. These are not shameful things. But like fear, this pull can distort judgment in ways that are hard to see from the inside. When times are good, when prices are rising, when the headlines are cheerful, when everyone around you seems to be doing extraordinarily well, something in the mind begins to reach. It says, maybe more, maybe now, maybe this time is different. This is how people come to buy things at the exact moment when they are most expensive. This is how they come to borrow more than is comfortable, trusting that the good times will hold. The pull of more whispers that caution is for other, less fortunate people. That this particular moment is special. And sometimes it is. But very often, the moment that feels most exciting is precisely the moment when stillness is most needed. Here is a soft image. Imagine a fire in a fireplace. When the flames are low and steady, you can sit close and be pleasantly warm. When the flames surge and leap, that is the time to step back. Not because fire is bad, but because in those heightened moments, the heat can reach you faster than you expect. Financial enthusiasm is something like this. A little warmth is genuinely good. It keeps you engaged. It gives you energy to act. But a great deal of heat, all at once, is the time to be still. Not to run away, not to be afraid, simply to be still, to breathe, to let the excitement pass through without being carried along by it. This is a difficult thing to do. It goes against the feeling, but it is, over time, the thing that tends to protect people from their own best moments gone slightly too far. There is a quiet idea that has been spoken in financial circles for a long time. It goes something like this. The best investment approach is the one you can actually stay with. This sounds almost too simple, and yet it captures something essential. A strategy that works beautifully on paper, but causes you so much anxiety that you abandon it at the first difficult season. That strategy will not help you. It does not matter how mathematically elegant it is. What matters is whether you can hold it calmly through ordinary difficulty, through the years when nothing seems to be working, through the years when everything seems to be working and you are tempted to add more risk than you should. This is what it means to say that behavior matters more than math. You can understand everything there is to know about how money compounds over time. You can read every principle of patient investing. But if fear makes you step away at the worst possible moment, and excitement makes you overextend at the best possible moment, the knowledge does not reach you. It stays in the head. It does not make it into the hands. Behavior is the bridge between knowing and benefiting. And behavior comes from somewhere. It comes from your relationship to money, from your earliest memories of it, from how your family spoke about it or avoided speaking about it, from the stories you absorbed without choosing to about what money means, about who gets to have it, about what you deserve and what you do not. These stories are not always accurate. Many of them were formed before you were old enough to examine them. They have been running quietly in the background, shaping choices you thought you were making freely. One of the gentle gifts of a financial life lived with some awareness is the opportunity to look at those old stories, to hold them softly and ask, is this true? Is this mine? Or did I simply inherit it from someone else who may have inherited it from someone before them? You do not have to answer any of that tonight. Just knowing the question is there, just letting it rest on the edge of your mind, is already something. Let us rest for a moment on the idea of patience. Patience is not glamorous. It does not make for exciting stories. It is not the subject of breathless headlines or overnight fortunes. It is, on the surface, very boring. And yet patience may be the single most powerful force available to an ordinary person in their financial life. Think about what patience actually means in practice. It means leaving money alone when the mind wants to tinker. It means not checking the balance every day. It means watching numbers rise and fall and trusting the longer arc rather than reacting to the short one. It means saying, simply, I do not need this to resolve today. For many of us, this is genuinely difficult. We live in a world that rewards speed, that celebrates the person who moved first, that carries a quiet, persistent message. If you are waiting, you are falling behind. But this is not how quiet wealth tends to accumulate. It tends to build in the background, slowly, while life is happening, while you are paying attention to other things. The trees you planted years ago are growing, whether you are watching them or not. A seed in good soil does not need you to watch it. In fact, too much watching, too much digging it up to check the roots, disrupts the very process you are hoping for. There is something deeply restful about this, because patience asks nothing dramatic of you. It asks only that you resist the urge to interrupt, that you let the slow thing be slow, that you trust, with some reasonable basis, that the process is working even when it does not feel like it. And you can practice patience in very small ways, starting tonight. You can decide right now to worry about a single financial number until morning. You can let the accounts be wherever they are. You can trust that the steady habits you have built or are beginning to build are quietly at work. That trust, that decision to leave things alone, is not passivity. It is one of the most active and courageous choices in a financial life. There is a word that does not appear very often in conversations about money. That word is enough. We talk about growth, about more, about goals and milestones and the next level. These are not bad things, but somewhere in all of that conversation, the idea of enough tends to get quietly lost. What is enough for you? Not in the abstract, not what you think you should want, or what a magazine or a neighbor or an advertisement suggests you should want. What would genuinely feel like enough if you let yourself answer honestly? This is a harder question than it sounds, because for many people, the number that represents enough keeps moving. You reach a milestone, and instead of the deep satisfaction you anticipated, the horizon simply shifts. Another goal appears, another gap to close. This is not a personal failure. It is a feature of how the human mind works. We adapt to what we have. What once felt like abundance begins to feel ordinary. And ordinary, the restless mind says, is not enough. Researchers have studied this for many years. They call it hedonic adaptation. The idea that we return over time to a relatively stable emotional baseline, regardless of what we gain or lose. The raise that thrilled you 6 months ago is simply your salary now. The bigger home that felt so spacious in the first weeks has simply become where you live. Understanding this is not discouraging. It is, in its quiet way, a small liberation. If you know that more will not, by itself, produce lasting contentment, if you understand that the mind adapts, then you are a little freer from the chase. You can ask a different question. Not, how do I get more? But how do I learn to feel what is already here? This is not a call to stop working or growing or dreaming. It is simply a gentle reminder that the feeling of enough is available now. That waiting for a number to change before you allow yourself to feel it is a strategy that tends not to work. You might allow yourself, just for tonight, to feel that what you have, wherever you are in your financial journey, is already something real, already something worth resting in. Contentment is a word that is sometimes misunderstood. People sometimes hear it and think settling, giving up, accepting less than you could have had, a kind of quiet defeat. But true contentment is something different. It is a kind of clarity. It is knowing what you actually want and why you want it. It is being at peace with where you are on the path without being indifferent to the path itself. It is a stable, gentle state, not the numbness of having given up, and not the restless hunger of never enough. Something between those two. Something that can hold both things at once. I am here, and I am moving toward there, and both of those things are fine. And there is something that makes contentment very difficult to reach. That thing is comparison. Comparison may be the quietest thief of financial peace. It takes something that is genuinely fine and makes it feel insufficient. It takes a life that is working and holds it next to something shinier, something curated, something that has been presented without its costs and complications visible. You have probably felt this. A friend buys a new car, and your own car, which has served you well for years, begins to feel somehow lesser. Someone you know remodels their home, and yours feels dated by the weekend. You come across a photograph of somewhere beautiful and feel, for a moment, a restlessness that was not there before. This is very human. It does not make you a shallow person. It makes you a person. But it is worth noticing. Because comparison-driven spending is one of the most common ways that money leaves people's lives without producing anything lasting in return. You buy something to close a gap. The gap reappears. A new purchase presents itself as the solution, and so on. There is an old observation that goes something like this. We spend money we do not have on things we do not need to impress people we do not really think about once the moment has passed. This is a little sharp, but it points at something real. The quiet antidote to comparison is not to stop noticing what others have. You will notice. That is unavoidable. The antidote is to notice that you are comparing and to ask gently, is this comparison useful to me? Does it point me towards something I genuinely want? Or is it simply making me feel less for no particular reason? You do not have to answer that fully. Simply the act of noticing, of catching the comparison before it becomes a decision, is already a kind of freedom. Here is one of the oldest and quietest truths in a thoughtful financial life. Slow progress, sustained over a long time, tends to produce remarkable results. Not because of any clever trick, not because of timing or luck or a single brilliant decision, simply because of how things accumulate when you leave them alone. Small amounts set aside regularly in something that grows slowly over years. Not flashy, not exciting, just steady. The person who begins early and stays the course, even through the years when nothing seems to be working, that person tends to end up somewhere that surprises them. Not because they were unusually gifted, not because they caught some perfect wave, but because they were consistent. They kept going. They did not stop. This is the slow walk, and it wins across long stretches of time against almost everything else. There is something genuinely comforting about this, because the slow walk is available to nearly anyone. It does not require genius, or a perfect market, or a perfect moment in history. It requires only that you keep moving, however slowly, in roughly the right direction. You do not have to be doing everything right. You just have to be doing something, quietly and persistently, with enough calm to not step off the path when things get hard. Think of it like walking across a long, gently sloping meadow toward a distant tree line. You do not run. Running is exhausting, and you will stop. You walk at a pace you can sustain. You keep your eyes on the general direction. You do not need to see the entire path at once. You just need to see enough to take the next step. Most financial lives that end well were not driven by dramatic moments. They were driven by ordinary steps, taken one after another, for a very long time. And you are already walking. Whatever your pace, whatever the terrain you are moving through right now, you are already on the path. That matters more than you might think tonight. Before we settle toward rest, there is one more thing worth saying gently. Everyone makes mistakes with money. Everyone, not most people. Every person who has ever honestly engaged with their financial life has made decisions they later wished were different. They bought things they did not need. They waited when they should have acted. They acted when they should have waited. They trusted advice that turned out to be wrong. They missed something they could not have known to look for. They said yes when no would have served them better. This is the universal experience. The stories of pristine, perfect financial decisions are stories told after the fact, cleaned up and smoothed out, with the hindsight that makes good decisions look inevitable and bad ones look like obvious mistakes. In the middle of living those decisions, they were messier, more uncertain, more human. What matters is not that you have been flawless. You have not. What matters is that you are here, thinking about it, curious about it, willing to learn and to try again, and to not let the weight of what has passed sit too heavily on what is still possible. Forgiveness is not a soft or sentimental idea. It is a practical one. The person who cannot forgive themselves for a financial mistake tends to do one of two things. Either they avoid the subject entirely, which generally makes things worse over time, or they become so anxious and self-critical that every new decision is distorted by the fear of failing again. Neither of those serves you, neither helps. What helps is this: look at what happened, understand what you can, take what is genuinely useful to carry forward, and then set the rest down. Not forever, not with forced cheerfulness. Just set it down gently for tonight. You did what you could with what you knew at the time. This is always true, even when it does not feel true. Even when you can see so clearly from where you stand now what you would do differently. You could not have known then what you know now. No one can. And so we come to the quiet end of tonight's slow walk together. We did not solve anything. We did not need to. We simply looked together at the way the mind moves through money, at fear and the ancient speed of it, at the pull toward more and the stillness that pull sometimes asks of us, at patience working quietly in the background, asking nothing dramatic. We thought about enough, about contentment, about the comparison that steals peace so quietly you sometimes do not notice until it is already gone. We talked about the slow walk, about how ordinary steadiness over time tends to do more than any shortcut, about how the path is longer than any single season of it, and how that length is not something to dread. It is something to trust. And we said something kind to ourselves about the mistakes, about the fact that they are the shared experience of every person who has ever tried. You do not need to hold all of this. Most of it will settle somewhere on its own. That is how real understanding tends to arrive, not all at once, but gradually. The way light fills a room at dawn, slowly, softly, until you realize the dark is gone. Your finances are not a problem to solve tonight. They are a long, slow story you are still writing. And tonight's chapter simply ends here, with you warm and still, with the thinking loosening its grip, with the weight of whatever you carried into this evening resting quietly at the door. You have done enough today. You know enough for now. You are as you are enough. Let your body settle. Let the breath slow. Let sleep come when it is ready. Sleep well